Hello, my name is Robert Haynes. This is Pegasus. This is my entry in the Brisbane City Council Recycled Art Competition for 2016. I managed to be selected as one of the 10 finalists. Let me take you through how I've made this piece. The base that you can see here was made from a lectern, and I managed to pick this up at reverse garbage, and in fact I picked it up for free, which was a good price. The pieces of steel you can see in the center here came from a chair that I purchased from a tip shop. All the wooden parts of the entire sculpture, all the cogs and everything here, came from a bookcase that I purchased from Brisbane tip shop. The little knobs that I've made here that I've actually just finished off came out of a necklace that I purchased from a tip shop. The piece of cord was a piece of old brickies line, faded and dirty white, but I just stained it a dark colour. This is a link out of an old chain, a couple of old bolts here that hold the base to the top. This is a fishing weight, and up in here we have part of a weight that came out of a window sash. Apart from that, we've got a few bolts here and there, bits and pieces, a couple of screws. So now let me show you the process of making the piece. The cupboard bookshelf arrangement that I purchased wouldn't fit in the car, so I had to actually knock it all apart. You can see here the sheet of ply that was on the back only just fits, and all the other pieces are in underneath here. For a total of $36, I got a large heap of material. Quite a few, four upright pieces in fact here that are quite long, and then shorter pieces, etc. So, and even this 3mm ply that was on the back will come in very handy. When we strip down the unit, you can see that it's all rough, the surface is rough and uneven, and what we're going to do now is feed it into our sander. This just shows you what happens when you clean the old cupboard bookcase arrangement up. Here's the original and the original edge, which is really rough, and here's a nice clean cut edge, and after I've sanded it smooth, and it just takes all the old finish off, and we're now back to what looks like new wood again. I was going to build a bird, then I saw this horse on the side of a truck, then looked up and found better looking horses in a book, and this one was in a book on anatomy, and then it was just a matter of sitting down and designing the legs. Horse leg movement is very difficult. The front leg works very much like that of a male human, whereas the rear leg works more like that of an emu. So it's a matter of trying all different types of mechanism and linkages till I can get something to work, and once I get something that's half reasonable, I can then go into the computer and actually draw it up using circles and lines and things, and then joining up the various vectors. And here you can see where I'm joining up the vectors. Once you design the pieces, it's just a matter then of setting them up and getting them in the right position to be able to cut them out, and that's what I'm doing here. This just shows you the screen of the program that I use to control the router with my computer, and then over here you'll see where I've cut out all the pieces for one leg. and just underneath there you'll see the router tip that I used to cut it out. Okay, what we've done here is we've made the leg movements for the horse, and so that as you come round, the idea is the leg must come up at the back here, then swing forward and then come down. Same with the front leg, and it's catching just on there, but that's alright. It comes forward there and then swings down to touch the ground. I've got to do a little bit of work on these bottoms here to change the shape of the foot, because that's not quite correct. A little bit of work up here, make these things the correct length. You can see where I've tried all different lengths, and then we'll be close to go.
I was a bit lucky because the stand had holes already in the top because it had steel tubes down through it, so it's just a matter of cutting out a piece of steel then the size of the top, marking out where the holes were and where I was going to use the pieces of metal to go down, and some metal on the chair was exactly the right size. So in fact, after I ground all this off, it was just a matter of then of cutting the pieces of metal off long enough to be a bit longer than I needed at the moment, and then just welding them all in place, and then I had a frame that would slip straight into the top of the stand, which was ideal. I printed out a copy of the horse, then tried the legs in place to try different positions till I got the leg movement to work right.
Drawing the mechanism is always a challenge, and here you can see I've drawn a lot of circles with centres of where I want the cogs to be, and then it's a matter of designing the cogs to fit within that space. It's a pretty difficult stage, but you've just got to take it very slowly. These are the cogs that will drive the head and the tail assemblies. You can see here I've started to put the drive train together, and this will drive the mechanism, and so as you turn it there it fairly easily turns, and then it'll come down here to drive the other mechanism in the bottom. Yeah, what you need here is a fairly fertile imagination. Cutting pieces of brass is always a tricky business, and you can see here, you can see by the size of my hand here, that what I've got is a little tiny miniature drop saw, and by putting these in I've made a little stop here on the end of it, which is made out of a hold down of a miter saw. It was just a scrap piece that I got from a Bunnings store, and that has got a little ruler under here, and the ruler shows me the length of that piece, and it shows that I've cut it off at 12mm. And so what I do now is just sort of start the saw, bring it down and cut every piece off. I've cut some little pieces of this brass right off, and they become bushes, and the bush enables it to spin on the shaft. And what I'm going to do now is put it into this hole here. So I put it in the hole like that, put the piece of bush underneath so that it's on there, and then what I do is try to hold it perfectly square and just push it straight down on there like that, and with a bit of luck I've got a perfect bush inside. And now when I run this in the hole, it'll run in and just turn smoothly in the hole. This is very much a one step at a time approach. You can see the cogs in the centre here where I've done them and I showed you before, and now I've put the outsides on. That I've actually mounted the drive cog in there, and you can see that the whole thing turns. Do a test and see how it goes. Now as I wind this cog here, you'll see this leg bends the foot back, comes forward, puts the foot down, just as this one goes back, bends the leg, brings the foot forward, and then puts it down onto the ground, and they all should work in synchronisation to each other as they go around. Even a foot has gone through quite a few different styles before I've finally come up with one I like, and the same thing occurred with the front ones, that I made quite a few changes before I decided on what I was going to use. And this is just a box full of bits and pieces that were failures, you know, things that were maybe the wrong length or didn't quite work the way that I want them to, and so it goes on. I spent last night designing cogs, and now I've got them ready to go. I've drilled holes here so I can put the scroll saw blade through, and you'll see there's little tiny holes around the place like this, They're actually alignment holes which enables the cogs to all align up so that you've got them in the correct position. When it comes to cutting cogs, the best way to cut them is with a scroll saw, because you can get the accuracy you need to cut out the parts. I've cut out all the voids now. I call them voids, they're spokes if you like, and you can see here there's some cogs that I've finished, and what I've got to do now is cut the rest of them out. Okay, the cogs are complete. Now we just put them on and do a test spin, and you can see they work really well, and these here, same sort of thing. So just straight off the scroll saw, they're really good. This shows you what a cog factory sort of looks like, with cogs and bits and pieces everywhere, and even if you pan over here onto the desk, they're lined up on the desk. This just shows you how complex the gearing becomes when you're looking at multiple layers all overlaid at the same time to see that there's no conflicts between the layers. This will give you a bit of an idea. This is the center point here of the actual neck swivel, and the whole neck's going to move on that. And what I've done is I've drawn the circles here, so that will show you how that part of the neck will swivel there. But then the outer circle which comes out here will show the relationship of how the neck swivels in relationship to the body. So it's a matter of getting those out. If I actually turn off the background, you'll see, turn off the horse, you'll see the lines there where I've actually drawn the lines in. And that gives you an idea of the outline and shape of the horse.
We can now design up the head. We can work out where the overlaps are, where the pivots are going to be, etc. And once we've decided these things, we're then ready to cut all the pieces out.
This is all the parts of the head waiting to be assembled and finished. Okay, I'm now getting to the stage of preparing the wings, and you can see here that I've designed up all the supports and the way it's going to work. These actually go on top like that and so on. And this is all the parts for the head mechanism that will make it operate. This is the bar that goes through, and everything else fits onto that.
I'll lay all the pieces down to make sure they all line up correctly.
This is just a close-up of the head assembly, and you can see the weights here that I've got, and they're going to be counterbalance weights. I'm not sure how that'll work yet. Time now for a quick fit of the head to see how it fits, and you can see I've got it up here, and at the moment I've got a swivel up the back. I'm going to have to tidy that up somehow, but then also a test fit here of the arms that will make the wings work.
A test run now with the head in place.
When it comes to making the smaller parts, like for example making the wings work, it's often necessary to just design these as you go, and you can see here this is a mechanism to operate a wing, and this is the bar that will actually hold to the body, and this is the sort of standoff that'll go in between it. That I've made a couple of different ones here. The first one I made wasn't quite big enough, and this one needed to have a little end cap in there to hold it so that it could swivel on the end. But it's just a matter of trial and error until you get something that works. What I've got is a grub screw, and I've drilled a hole in the end here, just a 3mm hole, and using a 4mm grub screw I can just wind that straight in, so it creates its own thread as it goes. And then what I'm going to do here is just put a shaft in here, and that shaft will go in, and then we just anchor up the grub screw on it so that it doesn't move. Now you can see that I've put it all together here in place, and what I'm going to do now is turn the mechanism and see what happens. Now the wing's gone up there, and then it comes down. Comes down quite a long way and then flaps up, so it could probably go a little bit higher and not quite as low, so I'll have to adjust this linkage here to get it right. There's simple things that can go wrong. You see here that that lever goes onto there, but there's no space for it to clear there, so what I've got to do is take that out by about another 6mm, so it means changing the entire structure of the leg and putting more spacers in, etc., to get space in that position.
It's always interesting when you get to the stage that things start to come together and you start to say, oh wow, isn't this great? And so here's a test with just one leg, and then I test it with 4 legs to see that all that part of the mechanism works correctly. It was a matter of coming up with a dual drive gear design so that it would drive from 2 different ways, so you could drive it from internally with the one set of gears and drive it externally with the other set of gears. Then I just needed a hand wheel for the outside so I could drive by hand. Now I've shown you 2 videos running side by side. The left hand one shows you it being wound by hand, whereas the right hand one is being wound with the motor. There are a lot of test runs in making something like this. You have to test it at every individual stage. When it comes to designing the main, I basically drew up 3 sets of wiggly lines and then separated them out so they became sections of the main, cut them out, apply the finish to it, and then it's just a matter of putting it onto the horse. The sign is just slightly different. You have to design it first of all, work out what it's going to look like, and then it's just a matter of cutting it out, once again applying the finish, and then mounting it onto the finished piece. This is Pegasus, finally complete. Let me show you how it works. I'll push the button now to operate it. You'll see the cogs here start to work. And then as we move up in, you'll see all the other cogs inside are working. As we swing round to the tail end, you'll see all the operations there right through to the main on the other end. This has been a fascinating but rewarding adventure. It's taken me a bit over 3 months to complete, from the initial design stages to working out how to do it and finishing the piece. But what a joy to behold.